Hey, DJ, ready for another great episode of the Men Who Watch Movies?
Yep,
What are we watching today?
a superhero movie.
Oh, I know. It's Frankie Muniz and Pizza Man.
No.
What are we watching?
It's the 10th anniversary of the Man of Steel.
You know what? That's definitely a better idea.
We're a couple of guys who like to watch movies, cinema nerds who made it our duty to make a show where we break down, discuss, and review. We're the Men Who Watch Movies.
Now, Man of Steel. What do you think about this one?
It's very, very different from what I saw, the versions that I've seen date back to the 1978 Christopher Reeves version of Superman.
Oh, yeah, of course, a classic.
Now, there was a something about, Christopher Reeves, back then, he was in various movies. And unfortunately, he was a string being back then. He was very skinny. He was trying to find a something to be bulkier, so he went into the attic. He found the biggest bulky blue sweater he can find. And of course, they wanted to give him a padded uniform. But Christopher Reeve was determined to build up his own physique for real.
Oh, yeah. I wonder if is this like the first case of somebody like working out and stuff like that for like a superhero movie like this?
Well, in Christopher Reeve's interview, which I saw, he worked out for, I have no idea how many hours, but he worked out vigorously for the Superman role because he, as you know, he was a string being, and Superman is no string being. He's a strong man.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And the only thing is, like, it was like something of a different because I didn't really understood why they were gonna give Christopher Reeve a padded uniform or something like that. I have no idea why, but good job, Christopher Reeves.
I mean, that was probably more common back then to
We'll miss you.
To want to put on like the padding and the muscle suits and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's rare to have an actor that's dedicated, especially back then, that's dedicated enough to to work out and build up to that kind of physique.
It was
now it's common.
Vigorous training, but I think that David Prowse was his trainer, I guess. I'm not sure, but
is that who that? Oh, wow, that's cool.
I'm not sure, but he is the 6'6" Darth Vader, the original Darth Vader.
Yes,
in the original trilogy, he didn't speak. James Earl Jones was actually the voice of Darth Vader. The reason why David Prowse wasn't the voice of Darth Vader was because of his mid-country accent.
That's right. I remember that. But not to get too off topic here. But yeah, Christopher Reeves definitely set that precedent. Do you think Henry Cavill lived up to that?
Well, I can say this for all the fans of Superman. This one is very, very different, and this one is very, very awesome from what I can tell. It's very good. It's well done. I think they took some of the elements from the comics and put in the movie. But yeah, this version of Jonathan Kent is a little different.
Jonathan. Yeah. I mean, I think he definitely filled out the role of Superman really well. I think, like you said, it was a great mix of stuff that come before, stuff from the newer comic books. They definitely tried giving full rounded representation of Superman rather than just like the cookie cutter, patriotic, Superman that we've seen in previous iterations. And of course, like I said, the classic Christopher Reeve Superman. He's very much just that. He's like truth, justice, and the American way. And now they're taking Superman in Man of Steel into the 21st century, making him more grounded, and as much as you can for a man who can fly. And
a dark Superman, which is like he doesn't kill, but don't want to spoil anything, but I mean, it is what it is. They say Batman doesn't kill. I doubt it. Because he is angry,
I like a Batman that kills.
And, there is something about, when they say, heroes don't kill, Batman doesn't kill. I doubt it.
As we've seen in the Justice League, or in Batman versus Superman, And of course, the Keaton movies. He kills a lot. Anyway. So yeah, like I said, they really brought him into the 21st century. They rounded him out. They gave him a deeper backstory into his mythology. Of course, we've seen stuff like that in the comic book before, but never really in a film. And I feel like they really added a lot of depth to him. Of course, that's Christopher Nolan, who did the Batman movies. He produced Man of Steel. I believe there was like an interview I think I read talking about their decision process and bringing Zack Snyder to be the director of Man of Steel, because he's really good with mythology and backstory. And they thought he would have that great vision to bring Superman to life. And that's one of the great things I do love about his interpretation of Superman, is that, they really tie it back to, like I said, mythology of the past, even to like, religion and all different kinds of ideas, and really make it, something more than just a two-dimensional character come to life. Do you like all that stuff? Do you like all that backstory? And
Oh, yeah. It's very, very good. It ties in the movie. It makes the scenery look good.
Oh, yeah. The visuals are a whole nother thing.
Visuals are awesome.
Yeah. Zack Snyder is like epic at visuals.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even
from
a movie.
300, from Sin
Yeah.
City, from other movies he has done. Fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, I love 300. The Watchmen. I love The Watchmen. That's great.
A classic movie.
Even a movie like Sucker Punch, where the story wasn't all that good, the visuals were just freaking amazing. But yeah, I mean, so he brought that kind of sensibility into the Man of Steel. I mean, like I said, the amazing visuals, great world building. I mean, it was great seeing the opening scene in Krypton. Of course, we've seen it in Superman 76, right? Is that when the first one came out?
I believe it's 78.
78. Oh, yeah. That's right. I get my numbers mixed up. But,
That's okay.
The Christopher Reeve Superman. We've seen Krypton, a very like barren, desolate world, like almost like it's all crystals and whatnot. Very striking visuals.
But this one is very, very different.
This one is very alive. Like
it's very, very alive.
Yeah.
There's a Russell Crowe portraying the role of Jor-El.
Yeah.
And of course, the actress named Ayelet Zur, who plays Superman's mom, and of course, they fill the role very, very well.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's very, very good is because Ayelet Zur was on a TV show called Daredevil.
Oh,
She played Vanessa Fisk.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. You told me
wife
about
of
that.
Wilson Fisk. I mean, it's like, when I saw the connection together, I'm like, hey, the actress is familiar. Oh, it's Ayelet Zur
You
from
have a good eye.
Daredevil.
You have a good eye for that. I didn't even notice that. But yeah, looking back, yeah, it is the same person. But yeah, they did a great job playing his parents. I thought Kal-El, Jor-El was great in this. But like I said, yeah, the world building on Krypton was great. We get to see all the different creatures and the kind of the workings of their society. Even though it's only briefly, I think it's great in the whole scene where Zod is trying to take over. He's trying to overthrow the government. He blows a lot of them away. It's pretty great. But of course, it's a interpretation of the classic Superman tale. We see
It's something of a coup d'etat.
yeah, and then of course we see Krypton is in danger. In this one, it's not the planet blowing up, or no, it's not the sun blowing up that destroys Krypton. It's the planet itself. Apparently, they're mining the core too much, and it's starting to implode on itself. So it's a little bit of a different take, but it's variation of the same thing. The planet's in danger, so they have to get Kal-El, who in this version apparently Krypton has been like creating like the perfect beings and whatnot. They've been kind of like creating artificial test tube babies, if you will. And Kal-El is like the first natural born baby in like thousands of years or some shit like that, right?
Yeah, it's a very, very different, It wasn't shown in the 78 version of Superman.
No,
with
they didn't go
Christopher
that in
Reeve.
depth with it.
No, they didn't go in depth. But the John Williams music for Christopher Reeve Superman, fantastic.
Yeah, that's one thing I'd say. I wish, I wish the score had something as memorable as that. But I do love who did the score for this? Hans Zimmer.
I think it's Hans Zimmer.
Okay, yeah. I do love Hans Zimmer's work. It's very like low profile. It's very epic, but it doesn't have like which is what he's going for. It doesn't have like that hummability. But I do love the classic Superman theme from John Williams. But that's neither here nor there. So we see them. They try loading up Kal-El onto a ship. As in all the classic interpretations. But in this one, they take what's known as like the Codex, which has like the genetic information of all of Krypton, and they load it into Kal-El's cells and send him off into space, headed towards Earth. Much to Zod's chagrin. He's trying to capture and kill Kal-El before he's able to make it up
angry.
Earth.
Like in the whole movie, he is angry, and it's like calm down, Zod. You're so angry.
Yeah. So basically, his plan is he wants to expand because I think what was it, like Krypton's downfall is they used to go and expand their empire throughout different planets and whatnot, but they decided to stop that for some reason, and they decided to stay on Krypton and mine it to extinction. And so I think Zod's plan is to start branching out again and taking over other planets. And turning them into a hospitable, whatever word it is, planet that they can live on. I think that's why he was trying to take over the government, right?
Yeah, he was angry. He was very forceful. The reason why that they changed the script in this movie was because, Terrence Stamp's version of General Zod, very, very awesome, but Michael Shannon does a very, very darker version of Zod. It's very different.
Yeah, Terrence Stamp was more like regal. Like he was obviously a bad guy, but he was much more like you said, he's like classy and whatnot. With the Zod in this one, he was like, he was just like batshit crazy. Obviously he had his reason. He wasn't just like insane or anything like that, but he would go off the rail, man. He played it really well. It was terrifying, a terrifying version of Zod, more so than Terrence Stamp. I can't think of his name right now. Michael Shannon, right?
Michael Shannon. Yes.
He did a great job with this. Yeah, but Zod would just go off the rails.
This is the maddest I've ever been!
And I like seeing him like that, especially like when he realized that, Kal-El had been sent off to Earth. He's like, I will find him. I love those moments where he just pure anger and, he's just willing to do whatever it takes to enact his vision and whatnot. Of course, just like the original movie, they get sent into the Phantom Zone, although it's not a cellophane square flying through space like the first movie. It's like this huge like machine apparatus thing that sends them into a wormhole or whatever. I thought that was kind of cool. And then, of course, Kal-El gets sent off into space to land on Earth. Of course, he gets adopted by Martha and Jonathan Kent. But then we see it's kind of a non-linear storytelling here. Like the first one, it's very straightforward. We see Superman as a baby, as a teenager, and eventually as an adult. And this one, we flash forward and backward. What do you think about that? Was that a little jarring for you, or did you enjoy
awesome.
that? Yeah.
It progressed until, Superman was a baby. He was a teenager. He's a grown man. But there were flashbacks where he was afraid of something and he locked himself in a closet. And of course,
that was a good scene.
Martha Kent was actually, saying like, you got to come out. You got to come out of the closet. What can I do to make you come out of the closet? There was something about it that was so amazing and so terrific. And of course, Diane Lane, who portrays Martha Kent in a very, very awesome, yet just an awesome way to portray a character like that. Just awesome, so legendary, and very, very perfect.
Yeah, out of the two, I preferred Martha over Jonathan Kent. Let's just say that. We'll get into that in a little bit. But that was a great scene showing a young Clark Kent dealing with his powers that are forming. Of course, he's not used to being able to see through, people, see their bones, and he's hearing things. It reminded me of that scene in the Ben Affleck Daredevil when he first gets his powers. Everything's just so overwhelming to him, all the loud sounds, and he's seeing weird things, and he doesn't know how to handle these powers. So Yeah, that's right. Martha's talking to him while he's hiding in the janitor's closet at his school, listening to the sound
Of
of
course,
my
they
voice.
de-age her and make her look young because it's back when Clark Kent was in middle school,
Something like that,
college, high school. I'm not sure.
No, either like elementary or middle
Elementary,
school,
something like that. I don't want to get the stuff confused, but it's a great, awesome movie. And I give this movie a 10 out of 10.
we're not at rating it yet, but cool. But yeah, that was great. And then of course we see like flash forwards of him as an adult. He's like there's a point where he was like a wanderer, just kind of going around from town to town,
wandering,
trying to figure out his life
to the planets.
Yeah, he worked on like a ship. And then there's that great scene where he saves the people on the oil rig, and he has to bounce after that because he kind of gave away his abilities. He's been trying to hide, mostly from the influence from his dad, not Jor-El, but Jonathan Kent, who's been trying to have him hide his abilities because he's worried about him. He's worried what that will unleash. He doesn't think people are ready for that, and we see that throughout the movie, of course. There's that scene where he's in high school or whatnot, or middle school or whatever. They're on that bus. It crashes into the water, school bus, and he ends up saving everyone by lifting the bus out of the water onto the shore. And then of course all his classmates are freaking out. And there's this kid that was like bullying Clark at the time, and he ends up saving him. And that kid's parents go to see Jonathan and Martha.
If I remember correctly, it was Pete Ross's family.
Something like that, yeah. Yes. And they go to see Jonathan and Martha, and they're freaking out, like, oh, man, like, this was amazing. This was like an act of God. Like, I know, my son knows what he saw, and it was, they're basically like just tripping out. And of course, Jonathan has a talk with Clark about like the implications of, unleashing his abilities on the world and how people aren't ready for it. And I think that's all, that's cool. That having that discussion throughout the movie.
Like, people are afraid of change, Clark. They won't know your abilities because they haven't found out about it.
Yeah.
You might get scared.
Uh-huh.
You have to choose whether the man you're going to grow up to be. Are you going to stand with the people, or are you going to be against with the people?
Yeah, I have a problem with the Jonathan Kent. He's I don't know his logic here, because I get the point that he wants to keep Clark's abilities, kind of a secret for his sake. But then there's a point where Clark was asking him, what should I have done? Should I have let them die, in order to hide my abilities? And then freaking Jonathan's like, maybe. Like, I don't know. I think that's a horrible take. I would have been just like, you know what, you shouldn't have let them die, but try and hide it better, and not have been like, yeah, let them die. Yeah, let them die so you can be safe.
I have no idea
why.
A
shit take.
It was something unusual, but Kevin Costner, being the great thespian actor that he is, he portrays it very, very well.
Yeah,
with
I mean,
gravitas and theatricality.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell he's a very loving father figure, but he's terrible. He's terrible at giving advice.
Everything you're doing is bad. I want you to know this.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that was just awful just to hear him say, yeah, maybe you should have let them die. I don't know. That was just, oh, no. But yeah. And then, of course, we see Clark at another job after he leaves his job on the ship.
He works at a bar.
Yeah, he's working at a bar, and there's this jerk at the bar. What's with Superman movies and jerks in bars? Remember, I think it was Superman 2
Superman
or
2,
something.
there was a trucker who was being a, what you might call a negative Nelly. And who was being rude, and all of a sudden...
that is one big pile of shit.
It's just a load of, nonsense, because I don't see the point where, there's a rude guy and he antagonizes, Clark Kent, and of course he almost uses his superpowers, and of course the lady tells him, like, it ain't worth it.
Yeah. Okay, now we're back at Man of Steel. Yeah, and then so he's very, because he got mad because he was like messing with one of the female workers there, harassing her. Yeah, and then he like poured his drink on Clark, and like he could tell he wanted to beat the fuck out of him really badly, but he held back. But then finally, he could only contain his rage so much. He impaled his semi on some with power lines. I thought that was kind of funny. It was a little overboard. I feel like the guy would have heard. I think because from what I could tell in the movie, he didn't notice until he went outside and saw his truck impaled. But you think some damage of that magnitude, he would have heard it from inside, like this huge crashing and cracking and destruction. You think he would have ran outside? What the fuck is that? But he seemed to be surprised when he walked outside and he saw the truck impaled. Yeah. I think they could have done. They could have done a little bit more a subtle moment there. Maybe he could like crush the front end of it or something like that instead of like breaking the power lines. But hey, he's angry. He doesn't know what he's doing and whatnot. What did you think about that scene?
It was very, very awesome.
Yeah.
Clark Kent couldn't beat the, stuffing out of the guy because, he had to keep a low profile because of his, Kryptonian powers and whatnot. So he decided to take the truck and put it on the power line.
Yeah. And of course, there's that scene later on. We see Lois, played by
the great Amy Adams.
Yes. And she's investigating. Apparently, some individuals have found some kind of object buried underneath like an ice sheet that's like thousands and thousands of years old. They're going to go investigate it, and she's of course on the case. She's a journalist for the Daily Planet, so she's got to figure out what's going on. And Clark is one of the people that's on the expedition with them, but he's there because he wants to investigate it for himself. He did. I forget what exactly. I don't know if they mention it, but does he know at the time that it's Kryptonian, or did he just have like a hunch? What?
They have a hunch. Lois Lane has a hunch of who her mystery man is, or she doesn't know who it is. There is a.
Well, she finds out that he has something to do with it after she sees him wandering off into the snow or whatever, and she follows him, and then
of course she sees Bob Woodward.
Oh yeah. But yeah, he doesn't like Clark. He like melts like the ice and
no one can believe it because they think it's supernatural, natural stuff. They don't understand what's going on. But yeah, it's something of a mystery to them.
Yeah, but he ends up finding his way into the ship, and then eventually that's the same ship that he finds Jor-El. Well, it's like a. It's not Jor-El. Obviously, Jor-El's dead, but it's like what would you call it? Like a AI Jor-El or something like that.
An AI.
Like he uploaded his
hologram.
brain waves into the ship or something.
Yeah,
like
it's very very AI-ish. Very AI. Very different. I assume that it's in many movies.
But then there's one scene where Lois ends up. She's still investigating what's going on because she's seen Clark snooping around the ship and whatnot, and so she eventually traces him back to his hometown. She goes to investigate in Smallville. She's asking people that he may have known. I think she interviews that bully kid at one point. She interviews people that he's been previously employed with, and eventually she makes her way to the Kent farm and whatnot. And so I feel like Clark didn't do a good job of kind of hiding his trail. Like she literally found out who he was in a matter of I don't know if maybe in a couple of days. I don't know the timeline, but she was able to trace it back to him pretty quickly. So he didn't do a good job of covering his tracks. I think maybe that's why Jonathan was so worried about him using his powers. But eventually, Clark, I think, has a heart to heart with her, explaining the whole situation and how he needs to hide his abilities. And eventually, she was trying to go to the Daily Planet with all this information and whatnot. And Perry White, played by Lawrence Fishburne, he wanted to kill the story immediately. And he's like, "This is insane." He's like, "You're a respected journalist. We're not going to put out some story about aliens and whatnot." But then eventually, after the heart to heart with Superman and whatnot, she decides to drop the story because she knows that she doesn't want to, reveal his identity to the world because he said that the world's not ready yet. But yeah, I love that scene though when he does go to the ship and he has the talk with Jor-El and about his past and his history, and then we get the reveal of his Superman suit, and he takes his first flight. What do you think about that?
It's awesome.
It was pretty epic.
Very, very epic. The flight's very, very awesome. Special effects are awesome. The theatricality of the movie is very, very bold, very epic. The music is very, very strong. It has a certain awesomeness to it.
Yeah, I thought the first flight scene could have been a little bit shorter. I don't mind the one from the original movie. It's pretty just simple. He gets his talk with Jor-El. Then you see off in the distance Superman wearing his suit, and he flies towards screen, and it basically ends with him flying towards the camera. This one is a lot more drawn out. It takes more time with it. We see him like trying to fly. I thought that was a cool detail where he's like trying to fly. He jumps up in the air. And at that point, I don't think he knows he can fly yet, but he jumps and he's kind of doing these really tall leaps, just like in the original comic books. His original power wasn't a flight; it was just he could jump really high. So at first he's just kind of jumping really high, and eventually he jumps so high and he's able to sustain his height and fly into the air. And he looks kind of surprised. I thought that was kind of cool. But it's a little long-winded. There's scenes where he crashes into a mountain, and then he's flying with then he flies into a area with like a bunch of animals and a plane, and they're running and stuff like that. I feel like it could have been shortened a little bit, but it was still pretty epic. And then, like I said, the movie keeps cutting back and forth between past and present. There's one scene where we see Clark having a talk with Jonathan Kent, of course, the king of bad advice. And it's almost like the same exact talk as Uncle Ben and Peter Parker had. Where he's like, you're getting older, you're changing, you got to be careful who you're changing into. And it was like almost verbatim that same exact
pretty
talk.
Much.
And then even to the point where he's like, you're not my real father, and then
it actually, it's actually a familiarity to the Uncle Ben talk with Peter Parker. So yeah. I can understand that correlation.
Oh yeah. And I believe this is at the same moment when the tornado rips through Kansas, right?
Yeah, and it's very, very dark. I mean, in the comic books, I don't know if anybody's read them, but Jonathan Kent dies of a heart attack in the comic books.
In this one,
it happens in the Superman movie, and it happens in Smallville, and then of course it happens in Man of Steel. But it's very, very different.
This is very different. The tornado starts ripping through the town, and there's a bunch of cars, in the area, and so they decide that they need to get everyone underneath the overpass to protect themselves from the tornado, and eventually, Jonathan Kent goes back for a dog that's trapped in the car, and then the tornado rips through, and it ends up crushing down the car, or something like that. Something happens, and then he gets his foot trapped in there. And his foot, I think it breaks his ankle or something. And then so Jonathan can't walk and get away in time from the tornado. Clark is desperately wanting to save him. But Jonathan Kent puts his hand up. He's like, no, don't save me. Basically trying to protect his identity. But it's like, I think Superman's fast enough to go and save him without anyone noticing who it was that saved him. But no, he's so steadfast on no, I don't want anyone to know. You need to keep this shit secret, that he's willing to risk his own life for the biscuit. And
I thought it was really, really dark. I just thought that
I thought that was lame.
It would just I thought that Superman would just save him and just come back like a superhero, of course, or a hero. But
yeah, I feel like he could have done it.
I just feel like it would be more noble.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. He apparently he had this idea, and he was willing to die for it, that, protecting his son was more important. And I guess, yeah, that's noble in a way, but I think he could have done it without anyone noticing who it was. But that's just my own theory. So Jonathan dies. Of course, that shapes a lot of who Superman is as a person. And then eventually later on in the movie, we see that Clark is not alone. Apparently, they see a ship orbiting the moon, and it's like the military that notices at first the ship that's orbiting. And we see General Stanwyck, played by Harry Lennox, who later on in the Justice League Zack Snyder version we find out is Martian Manhunter. I wish we would have gotten more of that. That was cool.
But it was a very small cameo.
Yeah.
But very, very brief and very, very, very awesome.
Of course, Zod escaped the Phantom Zone with his crew. I mean,
Of course, in the Superman movie, Jor-El, portrayed by Marlon Brando, he puts him in the some kind of like a small yet closing glass.
Yeah, it reminded me of like a little square of cellophane or something like that. And then they were like, remember there's like the scene where they're floating in space, they're like kind of pressing against it, and you can see their hands like pressing against the weird square thing, Phantom Zone thing. But in similar fashion, they're able to escape. In the first, like in the original movies, they're able to escape the Phantom Zone. In the second one, I think it was like the explosion of Krypton, like I think destroyed the.
Actually, it was the Superman was going to save the missile. He's going to get rid of the missile, but the missile accidentally hit the glass, and
was that what happened? I haven't seen it in a while.
And they escaped.
And in this one, he's able to like fashion something out of like the Phantom Drive or whatever. What is it called?
The Phantom Zone?
The Phantom Zone. But there's like, what's that kind of warp engine thing that they use?
Phantom Drive.
Yeah, and they were able to use it to fashion an escape method where they created a wormhole that allowed them to exit the Phantom Zone or some shit. But anyway, they found their way out. See, that's why I think sometimes it's good just to kill the villains because they're gonna get out. You know, it's like you can put away the Joker in Arkham, but he's gonna get out and he's gonna kill more people. Just put him down.
That is a good idea.
But I get, that's the thing about superheroes. They're supposed to be more noble than that, but this is what you get. The villain escapes to do more dastardly deeds. But anyway. We see they're circling the moon. They're looking, and then they do that creepy broadcast down onto Earth.
It was very, very much like I forget what it is, but it's like
you said it reminded you of the Mandarin.
Definitely,
very,
Iron very Man much. It was very, very different. There was no picture of Zod. It just showed him like very fuzzy, very something. It was very, very weird, out of place. I was able to show his face.
It's kind of cool though. Yeah, but it was kind of more creepy that way. You see like an impression of some kind of figure on screen talking about how we want, there's an alien living amongst you. He's pretending to be you, but he's not one of you. And we just want him. We're not going to harm you and blah, blah, blah. Of course, he's bullshitting because his whole plan is, spoilers, to destroy the whole planet. He wants to use, there's like these machines. I forget what they're called. They're like terraforming machines that take the planet and then destroy it and rebuild it into like a version of Krypton. And so I think they put like one at each end of the Earth, and it uses like the magnetic pull to like just crush everything like a big like can crusher and shit. And it at the same time it like spews gases into the air that changes the atmosphere. It's kind of cool. I like like that thing that they came up with for the movie. The FBI detains Lois to get to Superman. Eventually, Kal-El, he's kind of torn on what to do. He's like, he doesn't know if he should turn himself in or what he should do about it. He goes to a priest. I like that scene. He's talking with the priest, and behind him you see in the stained glass a picture of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, which is very like symbolic because in that part of the Bible, that's when Jesus was going to be detained by the Roman soldiers. And so it's drawing like a strong parallel because Kal-El is about to be detained by Zod's soldiers, and so the whole thing is about Jesus struggling, to turn himself in, which is what Kal-El is going through. So it's a very strong parallel.
Comparison.
Yeah, and I like how they put that imagery right behind him. So he decides to turn himself in. So he turns himself to be handed over to Zod. And there's that scene where that scene where he's in handcuffs, being held by the military, where they're preparing to hand him over, and then he undoes. He's able to break the handcuffs. So literally, he was just keeping them on to make them feel safe, but he broke through the handcuffs. He's like, "Look, I can literally I forget exactly what he says. I'm paraphrasing here,
I
but he's
can
like,
break the handcuffs.
yeah, he's saying something like, I could literally tear you apart, but I'm willing. I'm willing to cooperate with you guys. Like, I'm not here to hurt you. Like, I'm the good guy here, basically. But yeah, and then eventually they do hand over Kal-El to Zod, and then they kind of change. In a kind of change of plans, they also take Lois with them. I forget what the reason why, but they take Lois too.
I have no idea, but of course, when they get into Zod's ship, Superman is not used to the air climate, so he passes out, and of course they get to have a breather, and that's the stuff that they put on their face, and it's like it helps them breathe because the atmosphere is, well, let's just say it's different from Earth's air.
There's that epic scene though when he does faint, and he has like that vision of Zod telling him his plan. That's when he finds out he's going to destroy Earth. And then we see him talking, and Kal-El starts sinking into that pit. It's like a ball pit of skulls. It's that was great. I love that imagery. Like I said, the visuals are just stunning in this. I remember thinking when watching the movie, Zod should have just lied to Kal-El. He should have been like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna keep everyone alive. Don't worry about it." And then he could have done his plan. But of course, they always have to tell everyone their plans. I mean, that's what's kind of screwed over Superman to begin with, because Jor-El, he told Zod that he was sending his son to Earth. He should have said shit, and then he wouldn't have known to go looking for him. But he spilled the beans, and that's when the movie happened. I guess we wouldn't have a movie without it. But in a similar fashion here, it's like Zod was like, "Yes, I'm going to destroy Earth and turn it into Krypton, and all the people that you love are going to die." Hadn't he said shit, he wouldn't have. I don't know. Maybe he could have kept Kal-El from saving everybody. I don't know. But everyone's got to blab their mouths about everything. and then Kal-El gets a pep talk from Jor-El, basically telling him to save humanity, which is the message he should have received this whole time, not the message from Jonathan Kent to let everyone die to save his own hide. I thought that's just bad. That's bad advice. And then eventually, they're looking for the Codex. So there's one point where Zod and crew, they go over to the farmhouse because they think it's inside of the ship that Kal-El was sent in. So they go there. They even freaking choke Martha and throw her around. I don't know how she didn't break any bones, but they like tossed her like a rag doll. And of course, Kal-El wasn't having any of that shit. I forget what he says, but he's like, you don't threaten my mom or some shit. And then eventually there's a battle that breaks out in Smallville. I kind of like that battle. It's when it starts getting into the city, when it starts getting into all the big buildings and stuff that are getting blown up. I thought it went a little gratuitous with the craziness and the hecticness, which is a part that a lot of people had a problem with, all the destruction and death that happened, and it's kind of carried over into to Batman versus Superman. They had to address that issue. But there was just so much crazy destruction and whatnot.
Of course, in the destruction, I believe that Superman gets punched by Zod and he hits something, which is obviously a Luthor Corp truck. And
of course, that's right.
When Superman punches Zod in the air, we get to see a Wayne Enterprises satellite.
That's right. Yeah, I remember when everyone saw that Wayne satellite, there was theories that it was Christian Bale's Batman. But of course, now we know that's not the case. Ben Affleck was our Batman in this one, but that was yet before we were to get any news about Batman in this universe. So, but yeah, I like those little references that they threw in. But like I was saying, I do love the Smallville battle the most. I mean, of course, we get the military trying to attack, and we get the warthogs, trying to shoot at Zod and crew. But of course, the warthogs get ripped apart. There's one part where Chris Maloney, he tries to stab Feora with a knife. I don't know how he thought that was going to work. I mean, literally, they couldn't take him out with warthogs. But I don't know. Maybe I guess it was just a symbolism of his courage or something. But of course, it didn't work out. Would you say you enjoyed all the chaos and destruction in this movie?
Of course, it was very, very awesome. The special effects are awesome. What's fantastic about this movie is that it's very grounded, rooted. I think they got the elements of the comics in the movie, and the the thing about that was that they showed the poster of the name of the Kansas city called Smallville.
Yeah, of course, where Superman grew up. Yeah, like I said, I thought the intensity level of this movie was something like you would see in a team up movie, like where there's bigger stakes involved. I mean, of course, when you have people with powers like Superman and Zod, you're gonna have that kind of level of destruction. But like I said, I wouldn't have minded a fight, staying in a smaller town like Smallville. That way, it's you still have a lot of high paced action. There's some destruction, but it's not like tearing the whole city apart. It allows some breathing room for them to fight without so much destruction. And of course, they ended up using that criticism and putting it as a plot point in Batman versus Superman, where the destruction, all the destruction and chaos caused Batman to be angry at Superman. So I guess it worked out in that sense. But I think making Batman versus Superman, I've said this before, but making Batman versus Superman right after Man of Steel was a mistake. They should have went into Man of Steel 2, fleshed out, Superman more, post Zod and him, trying to work out his morality and maybe deciding that killing isn't the best thing to do and becoming the Superman he should have become, and then moving on to other solo movies and build up to a team movie later. But that's not the route they went. They were trying to rush it to beat Marvel, and then we have to live with that decision now. But yeah, I definitely like the Smallville battle better. And of course, we got all that crazy stuff going on in Metropolis. Eventually, they crash land into the train station, and that's when, of course, then the world engines are destroyed. There's that epic scene where Kal-El destroys one of the world engines by like flying straight up into it. That was pretty epic. There's one part of that scene where he almost looks like Christopher Reeves as he's flying up into the world engine. And then so Zod realizes that his plans have been foiled, so he's just pissed. So as they crash land into the train station, he's about to take it out on some civilians nearby. He says something like, "Well, if you love them so much, you're gonna watch me destroy them one by one," or something like that. And so he tries to use his laser heat vision on some civilians standing nearby, and of course, Superman's desperately trying to keep him from burning them alive, and he's grabbing his head, trying to direct it in the other direction. It reminded me of that scene where Judge Doom is trying to dip Jessica and Roger Rabbit. And they're desperately trying to keep the dip away from them. But and so in desperation, the only thing he could do is snap Zod's neck. And he did something they didn't want to do. A lot of people had an issue with him killing Zod. But he did it out of desperation. I think it was a good lesson for Superman to learn of something that he doesn't want to do. What do you think?
Yeah, it was very, very different to see. But, Superman had that breaking point.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good way to put it. It was a breaking point for him. Literally and figuratively. He broke.
Every hero has their breaking point.
Yeah, and if, like I said, I feel like if they had fleshed out Superman even more in his own solo movie, I feel like they could have touched on that. Like, he can reflect on having to make that decision to kill somebody for the greater good, and how that affected him and how that shaped him as the Man of Steel, and being Superman and what that meant to him. But yeah, all in all, I think this was a pretty damn good movie.
Very, very, very good movie.
Yeah, it held up better than I thought. I mean, in comparison to a lot of the other movies that DC put out after this, it definitely shines as one of the best. I would give it a solid 7 out of 10. Definitely worth a rewatch. Can't believe it's been 10 years. What would you rate Superman? I know you rated it earlier, but would you still give it a 10 out of 10?
I give it a 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. That's pretty damn good. Yeah, I had fun rewatching this one. I hadn't seen it in a while. Like I said, great visuals, a lot of good epic stories. A little overdone in some spots. They could have tracked it back a little bit, but all in all, pretty solid movie. Love Henry Cavill. It's sad to see him not there as Superman anymore, but hopefully the next Superman we get is just as good. We'll see. Let's see what James Gunn can pull off here. Well, this has been fun. My name is Alec.
And my name's DJ, the Movie Man Wagner, also known as the COE of the Men Who Watch Movies.
And we hope you join us next time on The Men Who Watch Movies.
We hope you join us next time And of course, subscribe to this channel.
Yes,
Click the
subscribe.
notification down below.
Yeah, you can
Post
check
your
us-
comments down below, and let us know what you thought about the podcast. And of course, I have my podcast called Movie Man Behind the Scenes.
Yeah, and I'll put a link to that on the end screen of this video. Like you said, make sure to like this video, subscribe. We have a lot more stuff coming up for you. We're going to try and branch out and do some other kinds of videos and stuff like that.
Yep. We're trying to build more content, so we need more views, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. And of course, you can watch us on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. We're also available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. You can listen to it as an audio podcast if you don't want to watch our ugly mugs, or you can check us out here on YouTube and see the video. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, we break this up into 2 sections. We have the movie review portion and we have the movie news portion. If you're listening to it on an audio podcast format, it's all just one long audio podcast. So however you want to consume this, it's up to you. But this has been fun. And we want to remind you all to check back with us next time. But in the meantime, keep on
watching! I hope this video goes viral, and it will. Take care, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, everybody.